Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Oh my goodness. Welcome. Welcome. So many familiar faces as always. Ali, Marlena, Sharon, Crystal, Gina.
Hi.
Brandon, Sarah. Oh my gosh, Sarah Queen, Cindy. I'm just like naming everyone at this point. Well, everybody, welcome, you guys. We are so happy to have all of you with us today. This is our very first Legende virtual tasting. So welcome. Obviously, I know you guys, I mean, I say this on all the calls, but you know, I'll reiterate it again. I know you guys are inundated with virtual tasting invitations, so we really appreciate spending an hour with you to talk all about Bordeaux and Legende. So, you know, like I always say as well, we definitely don't want this to feel like a lecture. So if at any moment you have a question, a comment, I mean, anything, feel free to interrupt, interject, and also feel free to make use of the chat box function to answer or ask any questions, and we will certainly get to all of them. So yeah, with that, I would love to welcome the fabulous Diane Flamand, winemaker of Legende. And I'd also like to introduce Susan-Anne Cosgrove as well as Cedric Villar, both from the Taub Family Selections team. So together, you know, all of us will be leading you through the 5 wines that you should have received and kind of taking you on a little bit of a tour of Bordeaux. So yeah, we have a lot to get through and a lot of drinking to do. So Diane, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and your work with Lafite and Legende.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Susanne and Cedric. And good afternoon, everybody. It's 8 p.m. for me, and it's the beginning of the afternoon for you. I'm very, very happy to share this first virtual tasting for me, thanks to the COVID crisis. And we will do a tour de Bordeaux by tasting this afternoon. And first, I would like to do a short presentation of my professional background. So, in fact, I started my career at Château Lafite in 1984. In fact, I did training during winemaking and harvest in October 1984, just before starting the enology school in Bordeaux. And this training was really influenced me and had a big influence in my decision to become enologist, in fact. And it was very funny 30 years later in 2004 when I was appointed at DBR to take in charge the collection range, the Legende range, in the selection and the promotion of the wines. And before that, I did a lot of things. I worked for very nice chateaus in the Médoc area. I worked for Chateau Lingebage, Pichon-Longueville, Baron in Pauillac during a few seasons and winemaking harvest. I worked for Chateau Louden in the north of the Médoc, where I was training manager, and I organized training for the sales forces at Chateau Louden. I have been a wine broker, and I worked too for 2 negociants, French negociants. First, Robert Scali in the south of France. It was at the late 80s, and Robert Scali was the first French negociant to launch varietal wines, French varietal wines, on the international market to compete with the New World wines. and I had the chance to work with him for 3 years. And then I worked too for Barton & Guestier, BNG, a very famous negotiant and well known on the US market. I started to work with DBR in 2004, so 17 years ago now. And again, it was really a big challenge for me to come back in the group 30 years after my first experience during harvest at Château Lafite in '84. So I'm enologist. I'm in charge of the selection of the collection range, the Legende series, and I'm in charge of the promotion of the wines in France and abroad. It's a big chance and a big challenge to work for the Rothschild family. So I'm sure that you know the Bordeaux region. For most of you, I'm sure you already came in our beautiful vineyard. So I will just introduce the Legende wines. They were created at the mid-90s by the Rothschild family. And at that point, they wanted to offer the consumers approachable, easy drinking wines, besides the great chateaux and the great wines produced by the group. You know that Domaine Baron de Rothschild owns, of course, Château Lafite in Pauillac, Château Duhart Milon, Château L'Évangile in Pomerol, Château Rieux-Sec in Sauternes. They own Los Vasos in Chile, Caro in Argentina, Domaine d'Ossière in the south of France, and since 2008, Domaine de Rothschild has planted some vines in China too, in a beautiful vineyard called Longdai. So besides these great wines, they have decided to create a new range of wines, and it was the date of birth of the Legende range. And they have decided to focus on the 5 major appellations of Bordeaux and to produce very characteristic wines, very easy to recognize, very easy to drink, and to make more approachable the Bordeaux wines with that sometimes seems for the consumers very complicated to understand, with all the different appellations, the different classifications. It's always something very confusing for the people. So the Legende series is a good introduction to the Bordeaux wines. And we produce a Bordeaux white, Bordeaux red, Saint-Émilion, Médoc, and Pauillac. So more or less the most prestigious appellations of Bordeaux. All of them are made to be enjoyable very young. So all these wines are made to be approachable on the fruit, easy drinking with soft tannins. And all these wines are made with the same philosophy than the Chateau wines, Château Lafite, Duhart Milon. I mean that we have 3 main qualities in the group, and when we produce wines everywhere in Bordeaux or everywhere in the world, we look after finesse, elegance, balance. These 3 main qualities, you will find these qualities in all our wines produced everywhere. So I do my best to find these 3 main qualities in the Legende series too, of course. So the Legende White and the Legende Bordeaux Red are produced in the Entre-deux-Mers region. You probably know, you have a map of Bordeaux just in front of me, but I'm sorry, it's not really very easy to see the map, but I'm sure that you already know the map of Bordeaux. The Entre-deux-Mers region is this big vineyard located between the 2 rivers crossing Bordeaux. You have the Dordogne River and the Garonne River. And the Entre-deux-Mers is the largest vineyard in the Bordeaux region, and 90% of the dry Bordeaux white are produced in this area. So the Legende Bordeaux white is a very classic blend in the Entre-deux-Mers region. It's mainly Sauvignon Blanc with Sémillon. It's a blend of the two grapes. You know that in Bordeaux, we have the chance to blend. By law, we are obliged, or we can use different varietals, and we blend these different grapes to reach a better complexity, to reach better balance, to reach better potential of aging, for example. And in our Bordeaux white, the blend of Sauvignon Blanc and Sémillon is very, very important, because both grapes give and provide the wine its own qualities. You probably know that Sauvignon Blanc provides the wine beautiful aromas, very fruity notes like grapefruit, lime, lemon, tropical fruit, something very, very pleasant on the nose. Sauvignon Blanc provides to the liveliness, crispness on the palate, a very good acidity. And Sémillon, on contrary, is more discreet on the nose, give roundness and softness on the palate. So it's very important to blend these two grapes to reach a good balance. And Sémillon is very discreet in terms of aromas when it's young, but it develops beautiful aromas while aging in bottles. So when I arrived in 2004, the Legende Bordeaux White was a blend of 80% Sémillon, 20% Sauvignon Blanc. Why more Sémillon? Because Sémillon is the main grape of Château Rieux-Sec, and at that time, for the technical team, it was important to do a little bit the small brother of the Air de Rieux-Sec, the dry white wine of Château Rieux-Sec. As I travel a lot on the different markets, it was a demand of the market, and notably of the US market, to progressively increase the percentage of Sauvignon Blanc in my Legende white. So today, this is the contrary. On the 19th vintage, you have 85% Sauvignon Blanc and 15% Sémillon. But it took 15 years to progressively increase the percentage of Sauvignon Blanc. Anyway, 50% of Sémillon is very important to get more balance and a beautiful nose of flowery notes on the nose. Do you have any questions about the wine before starting the tasting, perhaps? Have you tasted it before or not?
It looks like everyone is starting to taste. So I think we can kind of go into the tasting portion with the Bordeaux Blanc. Any impressions, any thoughts so far?
So the nose is very, very aromatic, very expressive, with a lot of mineral notes, citrusy aromas, grapefruit, tropical fruit. So this is something very, very aromatic, very pleasant for the consumers. And on the palate, you have a very nice freshness, very nice acidity coming from the Sauvignon Blanc grape. And you know, in Bordeaux, we like to drink the dry Bordeaux white as an aperitif, in fact, alone. It's very nice. Or with seafood and with oysters, for example. You know that in the Bordeaux region, we eat a lot of oysters. And this is a perfect match with seafood and oysters. So, or alone as an aperitif, in fact. What do you think about this wine?
We're getting good comments. Perhaps the attendees here, and someone said that the Bordeaux Blanc is the reason I fell in love with Bordeaux Blanc. You know, and I think it's a beautiful wine. That wine I always have like one in my fridge, you know. But like I also think that often we think of when you think of Bordeaux, you think of Bordeaux reds, but they have amazing, beautiful Bordeaux whites as well. And I think that one is a beautiful expression of one of them from the Entre deux Mers.
So this wine is simply vinified in stainless steel vats. You have no oak in it. We really want to focus on the fruity notes. And this wine is made to drink in the 2-3 years following the harvest on its freshness, on the fruit. And again, it's made in the Entre deux Mers region where 90% of the dry Bordeaux white are produced.
Joanne is having the Bordeaux white with spinach quiche and Roquefort crackers. C'est magnifique.
We also had a question. Let me try and find it from Becky Ellis. It's about glassware. Would you serve the Bordeaux Blanc in a traditional Bordeaux wine glass or maybe a white wine glass? Or how would you, Diane, serve the Bordeaux Blanc?
No, I usually serve the Bordeaux white in a Bordeaux glass, like all the Bordeaux wines, in fact. Honestly, for me, that's my opinion, but it doesn't make a big difference. What makes a big difference is the temperature. The temperature is very, very important, and you should drink it very, very cool, very fresh. And like Cedric, I like to put it in the fridge or in ice, because it's always better to drink a wine a little bit too cool than too hot. And that's right for the Bordeaux white too. So the temperature is really, really very important.
And Diane, it's Susan Ann, does the wine vary much from vintage to vintage? Marlena had brought up that question.
Excuse me, Susanna, I didn't catch your question.
Yeah, no problem. Does the wine vary much from vintage to vintage?
My goal is to respect the style and to have the same quality level, whatever the quality of the vintage, in fact. And it's much easier for me than for example, the winemaker of a small chateau, because I can blend different wines coming from different wine growers. And the goal is to have the same level of quality, the same style, vintage after vintage. What has changed in the 15 past years is the final blend, but it was I make it very progressively. So in fact, it's perhaps fruitier on the nose today, but the crispness is the same, and the body and the volume on the palate. I really select wines to reach the same balance vintage after vintage, even if today you have more Sauvignon Blanc than Semillon.
Gina would like to know how much you produce, how many barrels at the end of the Legend Bordeaux wine?
How many bottles? It's very regular, vintage after vintage, around 300,000 bottles a year.
Okay.
Which is not a lot, in fact, but and it has a great success on the US market.
Yes.
Thanks to you. It's really a good success on your market.
Yeah, and since we were talking about vintage, I know we discussed it a little earlier, but do you want to maybe elaborate a little bit on how the vintage is going so far this year and what you're seeing over in France right now?
The 20 vintage, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, it's for the 20s vintage. We have just started the white grapes harvest last week. So it's very, very early this year because of the drought, because of the sunny weather and dry weather in summer. the harvest will take place very, very early, even for the red grapes. And the white started last week. So it's very rare to have such an early vintage, in fact. So first grapes were harvested the 23 of August in the Entre-deux-Mers. Yes.
Very early, yeah. Should we taste the Bordeaux Red, Dana?
Yes.
Is that the time now?
Let's taste the Bordeaux Red. So, as the Bordeaux White, the Bordeaux Red is produced in the Entre-deux-Mers region. It's a blend of Cabernet Sauvignon and Merlot, around 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 40% Merlot. And why more Cabernet Sauvignon than Merlot? Because usually speaking, most of the Bordeaux, yes, that's a good bottle. Most of the Bordeaux Reds are made in the Entre-deux-Mers with a high percentage of Merlot. But you know that Cabernet Sauvignon is the iconic grape of Chateau Lafite. We love Cabernet Sauvignon at DBR, so we put Cabernet Sauvignon when we can everywhere. So the Bordeaux Red, and I am a big fan of Cabernet Sauvignon personally. So this wine is a blend of 60% Cabernet Sauvignon, 40% Merlot. So you can expect a nice body, even if the tannins are very round and soft and ripe. And we like structured, well-balanced and nice ripe tannins in all our wines, in fact. And this wine is aged partly in barrels. 40% of the final blend is aged in barrels. And this wine, like the white, is really made to be enjoyed in the 3-4 years following the harvest. Depending on your taste, if you like very young wines, you can drink it now. If you prefer more mature wine, you can wait a little bit. But again, the aim of this range is really to enjoy the wines early after the harvest. And early because the fruit, the balance, the nice aromas tend to evolve with time, and it's nice to drink them very, very young. As for the white, this wine can be enjoyed alone as an aperitif, or just with a big hamburger and with in front of your TV. And I like it. This is my daily wine for with friends or with my husband. We like to open a bottle of Legende in front of TV. So it's really wines which can be enjoyable alone and on the fruit, with very nice toasted mocha coffee aromas on the nose coming from the oak, and very nice round tannins and a very nice length too. One thing is very important for us. Again, I told you elegance, balance, finesse, because for us, this is the only way to make a wine easy to drink. When you have too much alcohol, when you have not enough freshness on the palate, I mean acidity, the wine is, for me, very difficult to drink. A wine can be easy to taste alone, but all these wines are made to be drunk, in fact. And sometimes, of course, it's better when they are matched with food. And you can match with food, and you can reach this beautiful balance only when you have a good balance between alcohol content, acidity, and when you reach a good freshness on the palate. What we call the drinkability of the wine. And Lafite is reputed to be very drinkable, easy to drink, very fresh, very elegant, very easy to match with beautiful meals. And all this range is made with the same philosophy, really. They are not really made to be with a lot of you know, they are not blockbusters. They are not with a New World style, with a lot of alcohol, very low acidity. They are really very classic Bordeaux wines, easy to drink, easy to match with food, and very easy to enjoy.
They're not big kind of show wines, huh? We're getting a lot of positive comments, by the way, Diane. I know you can't read, but Bordeaux hamburgers, perfect to enjoy on the porch, and watching a French film on Netflix, right?
Yes, good idea.
The very approachable, soft tannins, lovely balance. There was a comment from Dave. I think it's got a very nice fruit, and like you said, I mean, there's a bit of oak in it, but you don't. It's more like for the structure of it, right? You can't like really feel the oak. I think it's a very nice Bordeaux red. I remember from you, Diane, that sometimes you like to double decant all of your wines, right? Is that something that you recommend to people doing when they're at home, or?
Honestly, the double decantation, when I have dinner with friends, I do double decant all the wines, and of course in professional tastings. Today I just opened the bottles in the afternoon to be sure to have a nice oxygenation of the wine. But you're right, Cedric, like the temperature, the decantation of the red wines is very important, because this is the only way to be sure to have the good nose and the good oxygenation and the good development of aromas at the right moment. You know, it's always very frustrating when you discover at the end of the meal that the wine is better than at the beginning, simply because the wine has developed in your glass. So it's very important to decant all the red wines, young, old, anyway, whatever its age, simply to have to develop the aromas and to oxygenate the wine just before to serve it. And sometimes just 10-15 minutes before the meal, it's sufficient. Not necessary to open and to decant the wine 3 or 4 years before, except if you perfectly know the wine and if you perfectly know how it will evolve with the oxygenation. And the temperature is very important too. When we say at room temperature, in fact, it's at 16, 18 degrees Celsius maximum, which is quite cool, in fact, for a red. So don't hesitate to put a red bottle in the fridge or in ice, because it always warms up very quickly in the glass, and it's always better to warm a too cool wine instead of having a too warm wine in your glass.
Agree. The vintage, Diane, 17, not yes. the easiest, right? But
no, 17 was quite a difficult vintage in Bordeaux. You probably know that we had a big frost at the end of April, which destroyed 40% of the Bordeaux production. It was our lowest crop since the 91 vintage. So it was quite difficult the quality was more uneven than regular than a normal year, I would say. It was a quite difficult year, but finally the 17 are very nice to drink, and when we have been very strict on the selection, and I'm very proud of this bottle. In fact.
Good. Should we taste the Saint-Émilion? You prefer to taste the Saint-Émilion before the Médoc, Diane, right?
Yes, always. That's a big discussion between us, I know, but I like to drink the Merlot grapes before the Cabernet Sauvignon, and I like to drink wines from the softest, the round tannins to the more structured wines, you know, normally in the tasting. So I prefer to taste Saint-Émilion before Médoc. And this is the same vintage, so it's much easier too. So the Saint-Émilion, of course, come from the Saint-Emilion appellation in Bordeaux, the right bank of the Dordogne River. And Saint-Emilion is the last appellation we added to the range with the 12 vintage, so recently. So we have a certain credibility to produce Saint-Emilion wines because we have Château l'Évangile in Pomerol, which is, of course, a very prestigious wine made with 90% of Merlot. And it was a demand of the market to add a wine coming from the right bank to the range. And we decided to produce a Saint-Emilion wine. So this wine is very classic. It's a classic blend, 85% Merlot, 15% Cabernet Franc. You have no Cabernet Sauvignon in this wine. So it's aged partly in barrels too, because my aim is to have a very good balance between the oaky notes and the fruity notes. The aim is not to produce over-oaked wines and over-concentrated wines too. Again, the nice thing is to have elegance, finesse, and balance. So this is a 16 vintage, and 16 vintage in Bordeaux was probably one of the best vintage of the last decade. And rarely the grapes reached such a perfect maturity. 16 was really the perfect vintage for most of the winemakers on the right bank, on the left bank. It was really a very, very nice vintage to work. So 85% Merlot in this wine. You have a lot of red fruit aromas, blackberries, some crystallized, not crystallized, but comment on dit confiture déjà?
Jelly?
Oui, jammy aromas on the nose, something very ripe, very sweet, very pleasant, with vanilla aromas coming from the barrels. And on the palate, the tannins are very round, soft, silky tannins, something very, very round and a lot of volume and a very nice finish too. This wine is made to drink now, but thanks to the quality of the appellation, you can keep it in your cellar 5 years more without problem. It's made to age a little bit more than the Bordeaux White and the Bordeaux Red, of course.
We had a question from Dave Eckert. He was wondering why such a high percentage of Merlot.
Why such a high percentage of Merlot? That's a question?
Yes.
Because simply in the appellation Saint-Emilion, Merlot is the main grapes planted in the area, and most of the Saint-Emilion, except 2 or 3 chateaux, have at least 70–80% of Merlot in the final blend. This is really, the right bank is really dedicated to the Merlot grape, in fact, like Pomerol. That's why. And the aim of the Legende wine, again, is to be very representative and representative of its appellation. So I respect the classic blend and the traditional blend of each appellation. That's a good answer to your question.
I like your answer.
Okay.
Diane, you said that those, obviously the Saint-Emilion, and I think the same for the Médoc and the Pauillac, they're drinkable now, right? But you actually wait, before you release those wines to the market, you actually wait, right? That they're actually ready to drink, to kind of, so that they can be enjoyed when they're actually
In fact, the 3 last, the Saint-Emilion, Médoc, and Pauillac are treated exactly like the Chateau wines in the group. I mean that they are bottled, they are aged in barrels for 12 months normally. They are bottled and we keep the bottles in our cellars a few months before launching them on the market, exactly like Château Lafite or Château de Melon or Château l'Évangile. So the three appellations, Saint-Émilion, Médoc, and Pauillac, are really treated like the Château wines.
And any food pairings for the Saint-Émilion?
The Saint-Émilion is very nice with duck. We like to drink it with duck, in fact. I know that in Bordeaux, duck is quite a traditional meal, you know, but it's nice with every kind of, you know, pasta. I like to drink it like with a pizza or pasta or, you know, some chicken too. Grilled chicken, it's very nice. But it's more for special occasion, you know. I would open a Bordeaux white and Bordeaux red on a regular basis, on a daily basis consumption. Saint-Émilion, Médoc, and Pauillac, I open these bottles more with when I will organize some dinners with friends or with my family. It's more for occasional consumption.
Drew commented that he has a local raclette and really love to enjoy the Merlot of the Saint-Émilion with the you know, with the creaminess of that domestic version of like the raclette. I thought that was a pretty nice pairing as well.
You know, honestly, you have to try every kind of pairing. It's really difficult to tell you this wine is done to be matched with this kind of food, because today everybody's tried new pairing, and you know, it was very traditional in the past to say we have to pair and to match red wine with cheeses, but in fact, honestly, some white wines are very, very good with strong cheeses too. And white wine with meat, it can match too with chicken, for example. So, you know, depending on your taste, try all the match and all the pairing you like, because if you like it, it's perfect. And nobody can tell you that you're wrong, honestly.
I love that. Yay, this is why we love you, Deanne. I love that. Fabulous. Should we move on to the next?
Yes. So the next wine is Médoc 16. So it's quite interesting to compare both, because in fact you have the same vintage, the two different bank, right bank with the Saint-Émilion, high percentage of Merlot, and left bank with Médoc, a high percentage of Cabernet Sauvignon. So it's very interesting to compare the two wines, because they are really very, it's two different characters, and they are really very traditional and classic blend of each appellation. You should find more body, more tannins, more structure in the Médoc, more spicy notes too, peppery, black pepper aromas, because Cabernet Sauvignon provides the Merlot, the Médoc, this kind of very spicy aromas and spiciness at the end of the palate, with a lot of structure, tannins, much more tannins than in the Saint-Émilion. The nose of the Médoc is really very open, you know. It's very expressive with a lot of mocha, coffee, vanilla, cocoa powder aromas on the nose coming from the aging in barrels. In fact, you know, I'm a big fan of Cabernet Sauvignon, so honestly, I like Médoc and Pauillac very much. This is my region. Médoc. And again, the 16 vintage was a great vintage for the grape Cabernet Sauvignon. And again, rarely Cabernet Sauvignon reach such a good maturity than in 16. So you have perfectly ripe tannins on the palate. You have no aggressivity in this wine. And this wine can be a drink now and enjoyed now, but you can keep it in your cellar for 5 years and even more, I think, because it's really a great vintage in the Medoc area. Do you have some comments about the Medoc?
I think everyone's getting very
much
hungry.
more structure, yes, of course.
Everyone's drunk. No, Dave says, I mean, it's like 2:44 East Coast time. Dave goes, much more structure, but still approachable. Brava. Any other comments out there? Becky says, it seems to have more legs on the glass.
More legs, yes, more volume, more tannins, more, yes. And more alcohol too, a little bit. But both, yes, both are very characteristic from each appellation. They are really a good introduction to both appellations. If you compare them, they are, on my opinion, they are very easy to recognize in a blind tasting, for example. Do you think you would recognize them in a blind tasting? In terms of structure and aromas?
It's not that easy. We've done the exercise actually with some group of people, you know, tasting the Legend range. It's a very hard exercise actually. People usually are good at spotting actually the Pauillac, but it's quite complicated. I think everyone is looking forward to cooking tonight and enjoying those wines with food, and those wines actually are enjoyed with food, right? That's what you always tell me, Diane, that, you know, like maybe the red, you can have it by itself and the whites, of course, but like usually Bordeaux tastes better with food as well.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's
yes.
making me so hungry with everything they're cooking or eating or, you know.
Yeah, we're in like a room full of professional chefs. It seems like it's amazing. Just looking at other comments, yeah, everybody likes tasting them side by side, and a few people do think they could tell a difference if they were in a lineup. So that's something that we need to experiment with someday in the after.
And we, in terms of pairing with food, we like to drink Medoc and Pauillac because they both come from the left bank, but we like to drink them with red meat, grilled meat, strong cheeses like camembert and entrecôte sur les sarments. Can you translate, Cédric, in English? But they are really made to be matched with red meat and big steak and lamb too. Lamb, of course.
Yeah, good steak and lamb. Yeah, it's a very classic pairing too.
Classic blend match in Bordeaux with the Pauillac. So, you know, that's nice because for me, this is the aperitif, in fact, because I will have dinner later. And for you, this is the afternoon, in fact. Any more comments about the Medoc?
So Becky said she would drink Saint-Emilion by itself. Medoc would probably be better with food pairing, which I could totally relate to. Dave says you could definitely identify the Bordeaux Blanc. See, now I'm not sure. I'm like kind of like, you know, yeah, probably. Yeah, just a lot of amazing food comments and it's great. Yeah, and by the way, we've got about 13 minutes left, so if you guys have any questions whatsoever, feel free to put them in now and we'll definitely get to them. But I think we can move on to the fifth wine.
And again, that's very important for us, but these three last wines are really made to be matched with food. They are always better when you drink them while eating, of course.
So let's taste the Pauillac. It has a very
Yes.
story as
The
well, right?
Pauillac. So the Pauillac, this is a 15 vintage, and the Pauillac is the only wine in the range which comes partly from our two estates located in Pauillac, Château Lafite and Château du Harmillon. You probably know that most of the chateaux in Bordeaux today produce at least two labels. We speak about the first label, Château Lafite, Château du Harmillon, then the second label, Caruade de Lafite, Moulin de Duhart, in order to keep always the most concentrated lots of wines, the best quality for the first label. So the selection of the second label produce regularly easier wine to drink, or wines made to drink much earlier, like Caruade and Moulin du Duhart. In fact, to produce this Pauillac, I taste all the wines which have been eliminated from the two first selection, and I select the best ones, and I produce the Pauillac, the Legende Pauillac. So 80%, depending on the vintage, but between 70 and 80% of the wines in this bottle come from Lafite and du Harmillon. So it makes a Pauillac very easy to drink, ready to drink much earlier than the Chateau, of course, even the two second labels. And it makes a very classic Pauillac, but at the same time, very easy to drink, which is not always very easy because, of course, a Pauillac is made to age first in people's minds. And when you have a bottle of Pauillac in your cellar, you can imagine that you can keep it 10 years, 15 years without problem. And this wine can age very, very well. Again, it's made to drink now. But if you forget it in your cellar, a few years more, it will be perfect. And this 15 vintage is a nice example. You have to decant it 1 hour before drink it. It's very important because it oxygenates and develops the aromas. And this wine needs more oxygenation than the previous wines. But it makes a perfect classic Pauillac, very easy to drink, very elegant, very well balanced, because of course, Lafite and du Harmillon are in this glass, in fact.
Fabulous. What does everyone
The
think?
nose,
Oh.
the nose is very, very complex, very nice, you have a lot of tobacco aromas, earthy notes, because it starts to mature in bottles. So the nose is very, very complex, very elegant. And this wine is really made to be matched with food, definitely. Good structure, good tannins, very long on the palate. A lot of spiciness, peppery, black pepper aromas coming from the Cabernet, because this wine is a very classic blend in Pauillac, 70% Cabernet Sauvignon, 30% Merlot. And this wine is aged in barrels too. And you perhaps know that Château Lafite has its own cooperage. So we produce our own barrels, 2,000 barrels a year, to age Château Lafite, the second label, to age du Harmillon, the second label, l'Évangile, Rieux Sec. We send some barrels at Los Vascos, at Caro, to age Le 10 and Caro. And this wine is aged in 1 and 2 years old barrels coming from our own cooperage.
That's amazing. You're getting some good comments as well. Definitely one of the most complex, right, of the 5 wines that we've tasted as well. Tasted.
I know.
Very nice.
I know we touched a little on the aging. So Marlena asked, would you recommend aging this wine? So this is a 2015. at what year would you say, or how long would you say you could age this wine potentially? How many
You
years?
know, I think it's really, I like young wines. So on my opinion, 5 years is okay. It's for me, it's very good to drink now. But if you can keep it, I think 5 years more, it will be okay. It depends on your own taste, in fact. Depending if you like young wines or older wines with more matured aromas like earthy notes, tobacco, licorice, you know, it depends. If you prefer fruit and oak and something very expressive and very pleasant, it depends on your taste, in fact. It's very different from one people to another people.
I think it's an amazing wine, especially for the price and what's in the bottle.
Oh yeah, Sarah just asked if we could go through the pricing again. So the Bordeaux Blanc, Cedric, if you want, oh, $19 for the Bordeaux Blanc. The Bordeaux Rouge is also $19. The Saint-Emilion is $40. The Medoc is $26, and the Pauillac is $54. So a little bit special. And we're still getting a lot of great comments. Yeah, from Drew, these are serious wines for the price. Crystal, great value. Kaylee has a great question. Is it possible for people to visit the winery right now, especially with everything going on with COVID? And I mean, Roth.
You mean if it's possible to visit Château Lafite or Château Duard during the COVID?
Yes.
If you can take a flight and come, which is quite difficult today, I'm sure we will be very happy to welcome you because we don't have a lot of visitors since February. But normally not during the harvest, of course. Because during the harvest, our estates are closed. But I'm sure we will be very happy to see a visitor from United States with a mask.
And please, if you want to visit any of the properties, please reach to us, and we'll be very, very happy to organize that for you guys. Gina, you're asking how important in the US is Legend. It's since we launched Legend actually here in the US, it's been very, very well received. The wines, I think Bordeaux is perceived as being like very kind of, you know, intimidating, complex, a little stuffy sometimes, and expensive. And it's not true. That's not what Bordeaux. I mean, some of the high-end Bordeaux wines, yes, but most of those Bordeaux wines, as Diane explained, they're very approachable. So I think that kind of messaging is being very well received. I think people want to learn about those Bordeaux appellations. I think Legend is really one of the only Bordeaux wine out there actually that introduces the consumer to the different Bordeaux appellations, and each of those wines express itself in the local, you know, like that local appellation and terroir. And I think people are really looking forward to learn and tasting those. So there's a lot of, I find there's a lot of interest, and it's been selling very well actually in the US. If that answers your question. But Diane comes here often as well, usually, right? You comes about 2 times a year, Diane. So you know the US market very well as well. So you can probably comment on that, you know, like about the US versus other countries that you've seen.
The US market is very, very important for us. Of course, it was one of our main markets. And I miss you so much, you know. I would like to be at the end of this crazy crisis and to be able to organize this kind of tasting. It's very frustrating, in fact, to organize like that virtual tasting, because wine is really normally it's only fun and conviviality, and it's, yes, It's a very special period, very stressful, in fact. And I hope to come back very, very quickly in United States.
Are you looking to develop other appellations in the future, Diane, for the Legend range?
Yes, I would like to develop the range. We think about adding a graph in the range. Why not a Sauterne? Because we have Châteaubrieux-Sec, of course. And yes, of course, it would be nice to develop the range. It would be nice.
We have a few comments just from a few people that have actually met you, Deanne, in person. Last year or the last couple of years, we hosted quite a few dinners and lunches all across the U.S. So Clive met you in Seattle.
Yes.
Sarah Tracy and Stephanie King met you in New York. So we're just being a little bit nostalgic about the good old days when you were able to come. But
and Chastity in Bordeaux.
oh my God! And Chastity.
Yes. I remember very well. Yes.
That seems like it was forever ago, and it was like November. My God. But yes, at least we have Zoom calls and virtual tastings and a nice group of 41 participants to taste with.
Yes.
So yeah, honestly, so we're about almost at 3 o'clock. So if anyone has any other questions or comments or anything at all, feel free to chime in. Or did you guys have fun on our very first Legende tasting? See a lot of thumbs ups.
Good.
Thank you for joining us. It's really very.
And we look forward to hosting you here in the US very soon, Diane.
Yes, Suzanne. I hope so.
Yes.
And see you
Definitely.
again in Bordeaux too.
I hope so too.
Yes.
Well, thank you guys so much for spending an hour with us to talk all things Bordeaux. And thank you, Deanne. Amazing as always to have you. And cheers to everyone. Happy Thursday. Hope you have a wonderful week and the rest of August. It is almost September. Crazy.
Yes.
But I hope everyone is staying safe and well, and I hope your dinners turn out incredible tonight.
Thank you so much.
Guys, and thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Cheers to everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much and take care.
Bye-bye.
And see
Bye,
you soon.
everyone.
Enchanté.
See you very soon.
Enchanté.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.